Alright, today's topic is 13-3, arithmetic and geometric series and their sums. Today's date is today, and our objective today is to find the sum of the first n terms of arithmetic or geometric series. Well, I'm sure you're asking yourself at this point, what's the difference between a sequence and a series? Well, a sequence is just a list of numbers. A series is when you are adding those numbers together. I would make sure you know the difference. You might see something like that on a lesson quiz. So let's go ahead and go through the definitions. An explicit definition of S of n, or the sum of that series, is you just take each term and add them together until you get to your nth term. So t sub 1 plus t sub 2 plus t sub 3, all the way up to your ending point. A recursive definition, and we're not really going to use this one. I don't think it comes up in our chapter at all. Your starting point would be 0, and it would be the sum of the previous plus your first number, t sub n. These are the two formulas that are going to be really important for you to use. They will be given to you, but you should probably be using them so much that they become kind of in your memory banks. Arithmetic, n is going to be your number of terms. Let's put that down. T sub 1 is your starting point. Or where you start, the term that you started with. And t sub n is where you end up. Term, or your ending term, or your last term. If you have a geometric series, you need to make sure you're using the correct formula. T sub 1 would be your starting term, or your first term, and R is your common ratio, and again is the number of terms. So let's go ahead and do an example. On this one, we've got an arithmetic series, so they tell us right away that it's arithmetic. That's good. They also tell us that we're looking for S sub 10. They tell us the first and the 10th term. Well, that's going to be good. So let's go ahead and make sure we have the correct formula down. S sub n equals n t1 plus tn all over 2. This one works out well because we're finding S sub 10 on that. And that tells me that 10 right there as the subscript tells me that there are 10 numbers, or there are 10 terms. So n is 10. My first term is 3. My last term, which they give me, and you always want to double check that subscript. It is the 10th one. It's 39. Divide that by 2. Put that in your calculator, and you're going to get 210. That will be your final answer. All right, this one is a little bit more complicated. They're asking for going up to the 40th term. They tell us the first and the third. So we are going to have to figure out what that 40th term is. So right now, I'm just going to put a question mark because I don't know it. However, we figured how to do that in the first section in this chapter. So I need to figure out my D, and my D is 3. And if you need help doing that, they tell us the first, they don't tell us the second, they tell us the third term, That would be going up D there, D again to get to 11. So 5 plus 2D would equal 11. If you solve for D, you're going to get D equals 3. So I'm going to go back to my formula that I got in the first section. T sub n equals T sub 1 plus n minus 1 times D. Let's plug in what we know. Well, we're looking for T sub 40. We know T sub 1 is 5. N is 40. And D is 3. If we do that calculator work, we should come up with, I believe, 122. So now we know what our last term is. Oops. It is 122. So now, let's figure out that series. S sub 40 is going to equal 40. And our first term plus our last term all over 2. And that is going to come out to 2,540. All right, on this one, we are moving to a geometric series. They tell us our first term, and they tell us what R is. So we want to make sure we use the correct formula. S sub n equals our first term times 1 minus R to the n, all over 1 minus R. This is just going to be a matter of plugging things in. T sub 1 is 8. 1 minus 1/2 to the 8th power. And when you put that into your calculator, you're going to get 15.9375. If you were feeling fancy and wanted to get a common denominator for that 1 minus 1/2 to the 8th, your answer would be 255 over 16. All right, on this one, they're telling us that we're going from 3 plus 7 plus 11 plus, it keeps on going on and on and on until you get to the number 99. Well, I look at that and right away I can tell that this is arithmetic and that my D is 4. Since it's arithmetic, I'm going to go ahead and figure out my formula that I'm going to use. Before we have to figure out that formula, we have to figure out how many terms there are. Well, take 99 minus 3, and it's changing by 4 each time, so that's why I'm dividing by 4. You end up getting 24. However, the trick on this one is you have to add one more, because that's actually 24 numbers past the 3. So there are 25 terms here. So n is going to be 25. So we need to figure out S sub 25. I'm going to take 25 times 3 plus 99 all over 2. And when you do that, you're going to get 1,275. All right, that's all for today. Enjoy.